Hi everyone. Just to reiterate, my name is Ria Santhanam and super grateful to be able to present my research at the Symposium talk. My mentor was Katie Kirsch. She truly made this experience so much more impactful for me. She was an alum of Stanford and Harvard Business School, so her insight truly helped me throughout this project. Super grateful for her. My topic is ensuring diversity in the nonprofit world. Just to start, I kind of want to talk about who I am first. Again, I'm Ria Santhanam. I'm 16 years old junior, and I live just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Things I like to do for fun include competitive dance. I've been dancing for 10 years. I'm on my school's varsity debate team, and I'm also involved in our literary magazine. Additionally, I'm in the dance camp program at my studio, so I love to teach and assist parties there. I'm also very involved in my community, so I take part in a STEM for Everyone tutoring organization where we tutor subjects of Metco Boston students who are usually grades K through 6. And I've also been a CIT at several camps throughout my years. The question that I researched through Polygence is why are women underrepresented in leadership roles within profit-based companies? And how does this imbalance affect women's empowerment in the workspace? Ultimately, through my research, I figured that this underrepresentation of women in profit-based companies reflect structural barriers, and addressing these obstacles is key to advancing women empowerment and achieving equality in corporate spaces. Before I talk about my research intelligence, I wanted to address the current reality of our world today. When you look at the profit world in the United States specifically, you're going to find that men own over majority of these businesses. More specifically, white people own a far big majority of businesses. There's a few key reasons for this. One, profit-based companies often reflect the systemic biases that our society has instilled as time moves on. Because of historic biases, also implicit biases, you're also going to see conscious and unconscious biases automatically be implicated in the business world right now. However, on the flip side, when you look to the profit world specifically, 62% of nonprofit leaders are women. And more importantly, under half of these women are white. That proves that the racial inequality and gender inequality is extremely small when you look in the nonprofit world compared to the profit world. Key reasons for this. Nonprofits are mission driven. That means you're going to see women being attracted to these and feeling like they can take part, but more importantly, lead the nonprofit world. You don't see this type of inclusion in the profit world as much, which is why nonprofits are mainly dominated by women. Now, just for some kind of visual statistical information, on this graph to your left, you're going to see the ratio of women-led nonprofits to male-led nonprofits. And this is based on budget size, so the amount of budget and funding they have in their nonprofits. As you can see, all the smaller nonprofits under $1 million specifically, women tend to dominate. You see that majority of these nonprofits are led by women. However, when we move up the scale and increase the budget size, the women's presence in these nonprofits primarily diminish and get smaller and smaller over time. And conversely, the men presence increases. As you can see, the underrepresentation of women slowly decreases as these nonprofits get bigger and bigger. And a couple key things that this highlights is that the overall value and importance of women need the same resources that men have. Capital, networking, funding are all things that women tend to lack more than men, and that's why these data reflects that. My solution, I created a novel through Polygence research to spotlight the issues of women empowerment. My book is called She Built This: How 20 Women Turned Passion into Purpose. There's a couple things that I wanted to pinpoint when I wrote this book. It spotlights the leadership of women who made differences in their community, specifically through their nonprofit organizations. And it also increases and intensifies the voice of women in primarily male dominated fields. As we know in society, a lot of fields tend to be male dominated. So I thought the issue of having women lead and step up was very important, and I felt like it needed to be addressed. But then it also inspires the next generation of young women in advancing inequality, things that they can do to take steps to increase this. Now, I was very specific when I picked the nonprofits that specifically went into my book. There's a couple of key things I wanted to make sure. First, obviously, I wanted them to be woman founded or led. Again, that kind of increases the woman empowerment initiative that I was trying to attack. But then I also wanted it to be based in the United States. Obviously, across the world, there's so many woman empowerment things being taken. However, I really wanted to broaden the scope and focus on the United States specifically. Now, each of the 20 nonprofits that I included fell into one of four categories. I wanted to make sure that I was hitting a diverse amount of areas in the nonprofits that I was covering. So I kind of decided on four broad ones that I felt, accentuated the story a bit more. Education, healthcare, identity, and environment. So all of them fell into one of these categories, and I had five per. So it kind of evened out what everything included. And then within each spread or each 2 pages of a nonprofit, I made sure to include general information such as the title and establishment, but also bigger chunks and subunits such as meet the founder, impact or mission statements. And then each nonprofit had something very unique about it. So I did devote a couple subheadings to things specific to each nonprofit. So here's just kind of a bird's eye view of what the spread looks like from a geographical standpoint. You can see everything in the book kind of laid out. So I have the covers, dedication, just kind of general things that every book includes. And then you can see in the middle section is all the 20 nonprofits kind of laid out. And the thing for my book that I wanted to be sure to include is to make it very visual. A lot of the times books have just text overflowed and can be very overwhelming. I really wanted somebody to pick up this book and be able to connect with it and understand it immediately. So I did rely on a lot of graphics and visual appeal rather than just text heavy images. Now, I wanted to zoom up and to look at two specifically, just as examples. You can kind of see what the rest of the book looks like, what I included. So, the first one is Alliance for Women's Health and Prevention Services. Again, you can kind of see the main info, a logo, kind of the author, and then I had some big numbers, visuals to kind of make it look a little bit more appealing. And same thing for WRAP, an environment nonprofit. I really made sure to include things specific to the nonprofit, such as network and circular living, climate activity, and then again, leadership status. So now I want to talk a little bit about my process in researching these nonprofits. First, I wanted to pick nonprofits that met the criteria. I really looked into this deeply. I wanted to make sure that they were all diverse, but they still all had the same criteria and demographics. They were woman-led and within the United States. And then I wanted to make sure that they fell into one of the four categories that my book focused upon. Now, this was where the big research kind of came into play. I really scoped out like as much as I can in each nonprofit. So not only did I look at websites, but I looked at connections with other nonprofits, maybe things they have won awards, and I really tried to flesh out the main points of nonprofits. Obviously, 2 pages isn't a lot, but I really tried to pinpoint the biggest details and uniqueness of each nonprofit to pick to put on the page. And then finally, layout and visuals was the last step, making sure everything looked kind of appealing to the visual eye and it was laid out how I wanted it. That kind of was the last step and made the book feel more complete. So, what is next? Right now, my book has already been published, but I'm hoping to get it further and sell it on certain platforms and have it available in different forms. So, not only is the selling kind of my main goal, but it's more so spreading the message of what my book talks about, increasing representation so that these stories and initiatives of the women that I talk about in my book can inspire the next generation of women. In a world where we see so much bias and men dominated fields, I think it's so important to spotlight that women are also attacking problems and currently making change. This will only help the younger generation. So, as they can see that more and more women are stepping up, it'll only inspire more women empowerment and change. So thank you so much for listening and feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you, Ria. That was a really empowering presentation. As obviously a woman myself in business, it's really great to hear that someone like you is thinking about how we can get more people in the door. So, I have a couple of questions for you, and if anyone in the audience has one too, please put them in the Q&A. Oh, I see one. So I will ask the one question in the Q&A and then I'll get to my questions.
Okay.
So Tyler says, great presentation. Were you able to connect directly with any of the founders or share this with them yet?
So yeah, actually, one of the other things that I did was reach out to nonprofits in the Massachusetts area where I lived, and I really got more and more insight. So some of the quotes that you see in the book specifically are from there, the women themselves. And I think having that connection made it a lot more surreal. And as young girl myself, I was really able to feel impacted by it. And I think having their voice in the book directly can make it more impactful to people who read the book.
Definitely. Yeah, great. And in your conversations with these leaders or in your research, did you notice any shared traits or habits among these women? And what can you share about them?
Yeah, so kind of like the common denominator that I noticed in speaking with 4 or 5 of these women was that it wasn't easy at first. And they always saw that, again, what I talked about before in the reality was that resources and mentorship was often limited to women. They were kind of reserved for the wealthier, high status men. So they kind of had to be their own leader and work up. You're going to see that a lot of the lines in the trajectory of these nonprofits are not straight or go up. There's a lot of fluctuation. And I think in women specifically, they did have to work a lot harder. And I found that very surreal. And I think it also goes to show that hard work does pay off. And they were able to create the nonprofits into amazing organizations that are currently thriving right now.
Wonderful, wonderful. And both, again, in speaking with these women and your research, what advice from their stories do you think would be most useful to share for a woman today who wants to run a business, either nonprofit or for profit?
Yeah, I would definitely say having to utilize your community, utilize resources. A lot of the time, you're not going to find that a lot of people in the business world are willing to help, maybe because of systemic biases or historical inclusion. Like, there's so many factors. So, finding that support system, finding a community, and specifically the passion that your nonprofit is driven towards can immensely help. You have the passion, so getting the resources that you have around you can really help your nonprofit or business skyrocket.
Wonderful, Ria. Thank you again so much for that incredible presentation.